So this is the start of defining the difference between conventional and synthetic fluids. So we're going to start with what's called a Group 1 fluid. So this is a typical conventional fluid, and this is how it's specified. So when you get a conventional motor oil, it would contain some Group 1 and probably Group 2 fluids.
Yes.
So that's just the name of the fluid type. This is the manufacturing process that it goes through. It's a lot of chemical refining, just plain chemical refining to alter those molecules and clean them up a little bit. So not a huge amount of work, but some work that's done on it.
So the oil that comes out of the ground
Right, coming right out of the ground.
has stuff in it you don't want.
Right, there's plenty of things that are taken out of a barrel of oil, but when you get down to working on the base oil, there's
Yes.
still a lot of contaminants that come with it that we don't want, ineffective molecules that are in there. So it's chemically refined.
Yes.
And to change that. So this next one is saturate level. So this one we're going to talk about in a minute, but this one has a lot to do with oxidation resistance. So it's either a lower amount of saturation, which is not good, or a very high amount of saturation, and we'll go through that in a minute. So now we're going to sulfur level. Sulfur is a typical contaminant, and it comes out of the ground and you get a stinky barrel of oil, right?
Yes.
And you can get sweet crude or sour crude, you know, it's got more sulfur.
So you're smelling hydrogen sulfide.
Yeah, you're smelling the sulfur content
Yeah.
in that, and it does carry through, you know, so there is an amount of sulfur that we don't want in that base oil that comes in that we take a look at.
And you don't want it in your diesel fuel either.
Right. So we're taking a look at the sulfur level and defining that and basically trying to get more sulfur out of there. So Group 1 has a fair amount of sulfur in it. Now I'm going to move to viscosity index.
Yes.
So this is kind of a complicated one, Gale, but it's very important for, I think, the viewers, you know, to understand. So viscosity index is just the relationship between the thickness at a cold temperature of that base oil and the thickness at a high temperature of that same base oil. So
the range is minus 30 C.
well, this is one that we actually create a curve on, and there's no specific range for it.
Gotcha.
It's just the relationship between what it looks like at cold temperatures versus what it looks like at hot temperatures. So you get this kind of negative curve going on where it's really thick at cold temperatures and it gets thinner at hot temperatures. So the big difference is as we go up the scale to higher quality base oils, the viscosity index goes up, meaning that we don't get near the amount of change in thickness at cold temperatures versus hot temperatures.
Yes.
So that curve like this starts to flatten out a little bit. So this would be a conventional molecule and the synthetic would flatten out kind of like this. Less delta.
That's a huge advantage.
Yeah, because you think you start up your engine in cold temperatures.
Yes.
You don't want it to be lugging and have take a long time to warm up and take a long time to get that oil up to where it needs to be to lubricate things. And then opposite, in hot temperatures, you want to make sure that that thickness is good. You got a good thick oil at hot temperatures where you're needing to protect things.
So cold start engine wear.
Big one.
Yeah.
Some people estimate it's over 50% of all wear in an engine, cold starts.
I'm one of those people.
Yeah. Now we're going to go to a little bit more refining. So this is hydroprocessing and more refining. So you're starting to attach some hydrogen molecules onto that base oil molecule and get rid of these free radicals that are in there and double and triple bonds. We'll talk about in a minute. So more hydroprocessing and some more chemical refining. That brings the saturate levels up a little bit. So then the requirement, you have to be above 90% on that saturate level. And the higher is better for saturating the molecule. You start to get your sulfur levels down below 0.03%, so you're getting more contaminants out of the system. And then look at the viscosity index. It basically remains the same over here between a group 1 and a group 2. So they're generally that 80 to 120 level. So you don't get to better viscosity index until you get to group 3. So now group 3, Gale, this is where we get into synthetics.
Yes.
So we didn't define this. There was an industry dispute several years ago where one base oil manufacturer was making group 3 base oils and they wanted to define group 3 base oils as synthetic. They end up winning that argument. So group 3 base oils are still base oils that come out of the ground, but they're so highly refined, de-waxed, and hydroprocessed that we get up way above 90% for the saturate levels. The sulfur level, continues to go down, and we get this great viscosity index over here. So
greater than 120.
Yeah, greater than 120. AMSOIL uses Group 3 base oils. They're very good base oils, and there's different kinds, different manufacturers. We use Group 3 base oils regularly on some products. The next one, this Group 4 category, is only for one material. So it was defined specifically for a material that's used, widely by synthetic manufacturers in the synthetic motor oil industry.
Yes.
And that is polyalpha olefins. So polyalpha olefins are just one category of molecules that are really good for lubrication, great for viscosity index, and really good for oxidation resistance. This does not come out of the ground. This is a chemically synthesized molecule, making it very pure.
Yes.
And very controlled. It's all chemical reactions to do that. And as a result, that molecule imparts really, really good properties to the lubrication products that are made with that. And then the last one is Group 5, and these are all defined as synthetic. So Group 5 is a group of synthetic molecules, synthetic base oil molecules, that can range from silicones to esters to fire retardant base oils, and a number of base oils you use for very special applications.
Yes.
And they're not included in the others, and there's a lot of specific parameters that define those base oils.
Got it.
When we do use base oils for sure in this Group 5 area, other synthetic base oils that impart special properties. And that's kind of it in a nutshell for conventional, Group 1 and Group 2. Now you're down to synthetic 3, 4.